If you've ever tried producing a track like Joe, McGee, or even Sombr, you already know the frustrating part. It's that the real records sound huge with barely anything in them, while yours, with the same guitars, same drums, comes out sounding like a demo. It took me years of producing for artists, major labels, TV placements, and more to see what's actually going on. In these records, every part has one clear role, and your demos might be sounding small and thin because your parts are all fighting for the same role. So today I'm going to show you 7 techniques to fix that and exactly how to use them in your own tracks. Let's dive in. Technique number 1, split guitars. When most producers want a chord to sound big, they do the obvious thing. Play every note on one guitar, turn it up, and maybe pan it off to the side. It's loud, but it's not wide. All the notes are stacked in the same space, fighting for each other. Now here's the same chord, but I've taken it apart and handed different notes to different tracks. We've got the 1st and 5th on the first track, then on a different guitar, I'm going to add the 3rds and pan it to the other side. Then add the higher octave. And so again, here it is before. And as you can see, adding that additional note makes an even bigger impact. And apart from that last note, nothing new was added to that chord. I was actually in a session at Sony Australia here in Sydney, and at the time, the engineer noticed I was doing this with my chords. And he said, "Is this something that you've learnt somewhere, or just something that you do normally?" And I didn't really think much of it, but I said, "No, it's just a way for me to achieve more width." And he said, "That's really cool because it was something that he had learnt while working with Zed." And it goes to show it doesn't matter if it's recorder guitars, Contact, or even synths that Zed uses a lot of. Take that chord apart and spread it across the arrangement. You'll be surprised by the width and depth you can create. But here's what really surprised me when I started pulling these chords apart. Even with those chords sitting wide, the track can still scream demo or unfinished. And 9 times out of 10, it's the drums giving it away, just not for the reason you might think. And just a quick one before I show you, if finishing release-ready tracks is the thing you're actually stuck on, you can grab my free training linked below. Technique number 2, lo-fi drum grit. Indie pop drums typically stay simple on purpose, straight patterns and nothing too complicated, because it's mostly the guitars that are carrying that movement and not the kit. So the drums don't need to be overly clever, but they just need character. And one way you can do this is by saturating the drum bus. So one thing I really like to do is use FabFilter's Satin just in parallel on the drum bus. We've set the algorithm to warm tape, and we're going to really drive the dynamics and drive while boosting just a touch of the presence in the top end. So here it is before saturation. And then with saturation, keeping the mix knob at only 33%. So that's such a subtle move, but it really lifts the hairs on those drums and helps them pop in the mix. But that's not the only thing that I would do to give drums character. The next thing I want to do is put a layer of noise underneath the drums. So for this, I'm just going to grab some vinyl noise, and it sounds like this. I'm then going to sidechain it to the kick using Kickstart 2, so it has a bit of pulse and rhythm. So here are the drums without the vinyl noise. Then in the mix. But honestly, detail and grit aren't the only thing that make a section feel special. If you listen to the moments in these records that really stick with you, there's usually something going on that most people won't notice. Technique number 3, moment notes. Here's a habit most producers don't even notice they have. They add another layer, more ear candy, more stuff. And it honestly just becomes cluttered. But have a listen to what Joe does right on beat 1 of this chorus. A single high octave note on the synth. And that single note is what makes the chorus feel like it opens up. Just a single note in the high octave. And you hear the same thing in this Gracie Abrams track on the entry of the chorus, with the slide guitar hitting on beat 1 and opening up the chorus. Tiny, but it really opens up that section. So instead of asking what can I add here, ask what's the one note that makes this moment stick. You'll start to hear them in a bunch of indie pop tracks. Now, even with all of that in place, if the low end isn't right, none of it matters. And the way these records handle bass sounds completely wrong on paper. And I mean literally, the fix will involve deleting some low end, but not in the way you might be thinking. Technique number 4, bass layering. So naturally we have a live bass sound first, and for this we're using the Rickenbacker VST by Native Instruments, and it sounds like this. On its own, it gets a little bit lost, so I've got a little bit of saturation to help it cut through. Then for weight, a synth bass underneath. In this case, I've got a respace using Serum. And here they are together. So you've probably tried layering basses in this way before, but it's ended up muddy and just not working in your mix. If you're using something like Serum, a really useful technique is removing the fundamental. To do this, on each oscillator, select the pencil icon, go to Process, and then remove fundamental. It looks slightly different on Serum too. I haven't updated yet. So this was the sound before removing the fundamental. And then after. So the live bass keeps its character up top, and the synth just really holds the weight underneath, and it makes the overall sound so much more expansive. So here it is before. So you're essentially taking away the fundamental low end from that synth. And of course, the low end overall got better. And this kind of thing is the core of what I work on with producers I coach. And so if you're struggling to make release-ready tracks consistently, tracks you can actually send to a publisher, label, or release yourself, and you want help getting there, book a free strategy call below. But before we move on, try this. Stack both the live bass and the synth bass together, and sidechain them to the kick using Kickstart 2. Keep the curve really subtle, so it just creates a little bit of space for your kick. Technique number 5, guitar expression. So technique 1 was about what notes to play, and this technique is about how they're played. And it's really the difference between guitars that sound alive and guitars that just sound like any ordinary VST. Have a listen to this note that we added earlier to the chords. The note slowly bending upwards around a semitone. So if we take that part out of the instrumental, it sounds like this. And then with. But that gradual upward bend gives this section so much life and character. So slides, bends, pitch movement, even imperfect takes, try leaving some of that stuff in where you can, because it's really what adds the magic to these tracks. Whether you're using a VST or playing your guitars in live, they carry this whole genre. So if yours maybe feel lifeless, it's almost always this. Technique number 6, velocity groove. Check out this simple hi-hat pattern with every hit at the same velocity. Now here's the exact same pattern, but I've varied the velocities. You've got the same notes, but now it grooves so much more. And if you're using sample-based instruments or VSTs, using velocity is a great way to humanize those instruments. But even with everything sitting right, your choruses can still refuse to hit the way the records do. And I found the reason in a strange place, because oftentimes the size of a chorus has nothing to do with the size of the chorus itself. Technique number 7, the silent transition. You'd think a big chorus means adding the most stuff right there, but it's actually the opposite. The size comes from what happens right before it. Have a listen before the chorus as the verse drops into the guitar feedback, then silence and stripped back drums. That chorus sounds massive, and as you've seen, I haven't added a whole heap to it. It's the silence before it that's giving it that impact. Your ear kind of resets, and whatever comes next feels huge. And you can push it even further, opening up a filter out of the chorus, so it really grows and evolves, and I've done this here on the Juno. And on that note, something a little unexpected happens underneath it, and that's a very subtle white noise riser. So that big indie pop sound was never about layers. Most of it is organic, but none of that works if the underlying arrangement is weak. And there's one arrangement framework I use on every record I make, and I've broken the whole thing down in this video right here.